Hi friend, what's up? Would you like to know how a really cool female health influencer approaches fasting, biohacking, health, skincare, and much more? Then look no further, because my friend Melanie Avalon is coming on the show today to discuss so many health topics from a woman's perspective. She's really cool, a SAG-AFTRA actress turned female health influencer, and somebody I call a personal friend. You don't want to miss this episode. If you're enjoying some of the content on this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below so you can get notified when we release new videos. Our goal is to help you look and feel younger and turn back the clock on your aging. With that said, let's get right into it. Hi friend, welcome back to the Anti-Aging Hacks podcast. Today I have a very special guest, my friend Melanie Avalon, who is a SAG-AFTRA actress and is the author of What When Wine, Lose Weight and Feel Great with Paleo-Style Meals, Intermittent Fasting, and Wine, and host of the top iTunes podcasts, yes, multiple, the Melanie Avalon Biohacking Podcast and the Intermittent Fasting Podcast with New York Times bestseller co-host Jen Stevens, who I've had on the show before. Melanie is certified as a wine specialist by WSET, I hope I'm saying that right, as a holistic nutritionist by the AFPA, and as a member of Mensa International. She is a smart cookie. Melanie developed the top iTunes app Food Sense Guide to help those with food sensitivities, and she currently runs 3 rapidly growing Facebook groups with over 10K members. This girl is a dynamo, folks, and this interview will be a little different because I've asked some of Melanie's followers for questions that I should ask her. And boy, did I get a boatload of questions. So I've mixed some of those questions in with the regular interview questions, and I'll call those out as they come up. So with that said, Melanie, welcome to the Anti-Aging Hacks Show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this, for months, ever since we first started talking about it. So I'm really excited. I feel like we could talk for hours.
We can, and we do, off camera as well. So what I want you to do, Melanie, is your background is really cool. You come from a different industry like some others, but it's interesting because you were going to school in USC and you were going down the path of being an actress in the movie industry. And then there are certain things that happened to you in your, not only in your college, but also after that kind of changed the trajectory a little bit, not too much. So will you please share your background and how you got into health and wellness? What are some of the triggers that got you into this field?
Sure. So long story short, I was always trying to do different diets to lose weight. And then like a lot of people in the diet health sphere, I found Atkins, the whole low carb thing. And that was when I was like, changing your diet actually affects so many things in your life, not just like weight loss. And from there, I became really obsessed with the science of diet. I started doing intermittent fasting. Like this was like 10 years ago. So like people weren't talking about it. Like nobody knew what it was. Then I started doing paleo. And like you said, I was at USC in LA and I was doing all these crazy dietary habits and getting all these questions from people. So I decided to self-publish a book so that I could like stop answering all the questions. I could be like, here, like read this. And then also around that same time, I started experiencing different like health challenges, fatigue, digestion, stuff like that. And that led me to just become even more obsessed with researching health and wellness related things to make myself feel better. And I started finding things that would actually work. And the way I am is when I find things that actually work, I have to like tell everybody. I just have to tell them. So, because I want people to try it for themselves. And podcasting was an amazing platform to do that, obviously. So, started the podcast shows, and it's great because it's my love of not public speaking, my love of like, being in front of people and like sharing information, but I also get to combine my love of science and research, and I get to talk to the most incredible people in the health and wellness sphere. So yeah, here we are. Here we are.
It's a great story, folks. She's omitting or skipping a large portions of it, but we'll tease some more out. So Melanie, I learned that you started intermittent fasting when you were at USC in college. At that age, kids are trying to get drunk every night and party like there's no tomorrow. Why were you such a go-getter and focusing on intermittent fasting? Are you the ultimate nerd?
I'm definitely a nerd. I'm a crazy nerd. The reason I started intermittent fasting was, like I said, I was doing low carb, and that was really effective. And that doing low carb and I'm not low carb now, by the way. But doing low carb was the first time that I didn't feel like I was dieting. I didn't feel like I had those crazy blood sugar swings. So like I said, I was like researching more and more. And at the time, if there were people doing intermittent fasting, they tended to be in the low carb world. So in the dark like holes of the internet, I found like this one blog post that talked about eating one meal a day, and it had like 300 comments on it, which at the time was a lot. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna try this. This is gonna make my life easier. I think that's why I did it. Like I thought it would make my life easier, and it did. And I share this story all the time, but being like a college student and everything, I was right by a grocery store, and they would mark down the rotisserie chickens every single night to $3. So I realized if I waited until 11 p.m., then I could go there and I could get a rotisserie chicken for like $3, and I could eat all of it to my heart's content, and I could go to bed and like not have to worry about any of that again till the next night. And it just really worked well.
Oh, wow.
And so I never stopped the chicken, but I never stopped the one meal a day.
I'm surprised you could actually fall asleep after eating most of that chicken.
Oh yeah.
But
I sleep well, like in the feasted, like satiated state. So
sure.
Do you, are you a morning person, night person?
Yeah, I try to stop eating at 7 p.m. and I don't eat too many carbs. Really,
I would be like starving.
So Melanie, you have two podcasts. The Intermittent Fasting Podcast, which you started in 2017. I think I found you first in about 2018 and listened to a couple episodes. I was like, this is really interesting stuff. And you also started the second one because one was clearly not enough. And you started the Melanie Avalon Biohacking Podcast in 2019. And you've got a food sense app that you've also created, and you've written a book. So there's a pattern: one book, two podcasts, an app on the App Store, and you're pretty active in your communities as well. Do you do this all day, or do you have any downtime?
It is my downtime in a way. Like my work is my love. So it's not hard. It is all I do, like job wise. But it's what I love doing. So it's not hard for me to do it. I want to do it. It's hard for me not to do anything. So like what I do qualify as downtime is like a lot of the like biohacking practices that I do. So like laying in my infrared sauna, or, I like watching movies while working on notes for shows and stuff like that. Meditation, like, yeah, my downtime is my work.
That's great. There's only a small percent of the population that finds their work and play can mesh together, and they love doing they're doing what they love. So it's really not work. So congratulations on finding that. Do you love this more than acting?
That's a really good question. And I don't think so, actually. So like, if I think back to like the happiest moments of my life of just like pure happiness, they were all moments on set. So I think that's really telling. But I love all of it. And you and I were talking before this, like my goal now is to turn, because the podcasts are obviously, well, your podcast has a visual element, but mine are all audio. So I would like to like bridge it all together and turn it into a TV show or something like that. Cause then that would be everything all
That'd
together
be fabulous.
that I love.
Yeah.
So that's the current goal.
Okay, fantastic. Now, one other thing before we get into some of the biohacks and fasting that I want to ask you about, especially what you do specifically. You wrote a book in 2018, which we kind of alluded to. It's called What, When, Wine. What was your reason behind this huge labor of love? I assume it took a year or two to write it, correct? Yeah.
So I originally self-published it in 2014. And the initial reason was, like I said, because I was at that time, I was doing a lot of background work on television shows. So like every single day I was like on a different TV set and meeting all new people and not eating while other people were eating because of the fasting. And people would just ask, like, it was like just every single day, like people asking me, why aren't you eating? And I'd be like, because I'm fasting. And then it'd be like all these questions. And so that was when I was like, okay, I have to write this as a book, and actually do the research and have something that I can present to people. And then I was just so grateful that I, in 2016, signed with my dream agent who represents all of my personal heroes. And so with her, I got to release it like in stores, which I'm just perpetually really grateful for everything. Yeah. So that's the book.
Okay, great. So let's talk about fasting. Let's dive right in. I know that you are a huge fan of fasting and I'm a big fan of it as well. And I've been doing it for a few years. In fact, going back to 2017, you loved it so much, obviously, that you started a podcast with your co-host, Jen Stevens. And before we get in, because I have a few questions about it, let's break down the terminology, Melanie, because there's obviously intermittent fasting. Then there's a new term out there called time-restricted feeding, or TRF. There's also multi-day fasts that people can do. Sometimes they skip a day. How would you quickly describe the terminology, and then what protocol do you follow?
Yeah, so it is really confusing. So intermittent fasting, IF, I sort of feel is like the umbrella term to cover all the different like manifestations of it. But the general concept of intermittent fasting is going a certain amount of time without eating. It's generally accepted that it takes about 12 hours to enter the like fasted state where you're making all the change, like the genetic, epigenetic changes of like the benefits that you're getting from fasting. Mm-hmm. And then from there, the benefits tend to continue to increase. So numbers are often used to describe the windows that people do. So people will often do like 16-8, and that means you're fasting for 16 hours and eating for 8 hours. Or people will do like 24. So fasting for 20 hours, eating for 4 hours. The time restricted feeding that you mentioned, that's TRF. There's also time restricted eating, which is the same thing, TRE. Mm-hmm. That's usually used in the clinical literature to describe intermittent fasting patterns. It's really all a synonym for intermittent fasting. Then there's also like ADF, alternate day fasting. So that's where there's different versions of it, but usually that's where people eat normally one day and then either fast completely the next day or just eat like 500 calories the next day. And then certain days of the week might be that fasted day. And then there's 1 meal a day, which is what I do, OMAD or OMAD. And that's where you eat, surprise, quote, 1 meal a day. Some people do it just by the meal. So like they just eat lunch or they just eat dinner or they just eat breakfast. Some people do it also by a window. So they actually eat for like a 4-hour window. There's a lot of nuances, but it's really just about like finding what works for you. So when I first started, I've been doing quote 1 meal a day all along. When I first started, I would focus on fasting like a minimum amount of hours, with like probably like 20 hours, and then I would eat dinner. Now I don't really look at the clock or the time, but I only eat my dinner at night. So I don't really count anything beyond that.
Gotcha. And for the folks listening, it's, when you think about fasting for that long, Melanie's fasting 20 hours a day. For some of you, you might be thinking, wow, I would starve to death. Like there's no way I could do it. But trust me, once you start getting into intermittent fasting, and you can start slow, you can start with, maybe pushing your breakfast back by an hour, then 2, then 3, and pretty soon your body gets used to fasting, and the benefits of it are so important and so good, especially from an anti-aging and longevity standpoint. So Melanie, we know that there's benefits like autophagy and stem cell activation and all that. What are the benefits that you're going after with fasting particularly?
Yeah. So, everything that you said is really, really, I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because it does sound really scary, but when you go into the fasted state, your body is switching over to a fat burning metabolism, and it's not like, quote, waiting for your next meal. It basically accepts the fact that energy is not coming in. So upregulates energy production endogenously from yourself and your fat stores. Everybody, even people who are like thin have ample fat stores to support like a lot of energy. So it actually, hunger tends to dissipate during the fast. But as far as the benefits that I was going for, so originally it was honestly weight loss. And then it was the energy. And I think one of my favorite things was not having to focus at all anymore on diet. So I like diet restriction. I basically could finally just eat all that I wanted, which was really amazing. But since then, a lot of the benefits that I really like, my skin, it's really great for my skin. My like feelings of inflammation. I know that's really vague, but I just feel like less inflamed. Brain fog, it's amazing for that. The energy, really just there's just so many things. Yeah. And our listeners report, so many health benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Staying lean is correlated with just having a general better and longer life, because fat does all kinds of things in your body, including exuding inflammatory markers that don't do you any good. And also one of my favorites is that it activates AMPK, which is a anti-aging pathway or longevity pathway in your body, which is kind of like the master regulator of your energy sensing mechanism. And so it tells your body to stop creating new things that require energy and start breaking down things that don't require energy, that provide energy. So fat is one of those things that it breaks down. So yeah, great. Awesome. Now, here's a community question for you, Melanie. People are curious what time of the day you eat and for how long you eat, and what are you eating in this time?
Yes. People always want to know this. Okay. So the reason I'm so like, not just like, here's what I eat and here's the pictures and here's the times, a few reasons. One, I'm really worried that people are going to want to eat like exactly what I eat. And okay. I actually don't think the way that I eat is the ideal way to eat. I think it's the way I most enjoy eating though. And so I think it becomes the ideal way for me to eat. But like I'm writing this long post right now on circadian rhythms and the like early versus late night eating. And like, does it matter? And from what I can see, I actually do think like all things considered, if everything is controlled and you can stick to it, I do think actually earlier eating is better. But I think a lot of people prefer later eating, and that makes it easier to stick to. And I think the benefits actually come out to be pretty like very similar anyways. So that's like a huge disclaimer to say I eat really late. I usually start eating
at midnight.
No. Like usually around like 9 is when I like start. And I usually eat until I go to bed. So I might be eating from like 9 to like 1 a.m. And then I just like pass out.
Do you brush your teeth? You'd brush your teeth before that?
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Yes. I have like a fixation, oral fixation. But, and then I eat very simply, like very, very simply. The one staple is lots of protein. So pounds of like lean chicken or lean fish, usually, sometimes lean beef. And then I usually do either high carb or high fat. So if I'm doing high carb, I tend to eat pounds of fruit. If I'm doing high fat, I tend to eat a lot of actually like MCT oil with it. And then I always eat a ton of cucumbers. And I say this is like very regimented, but I've literally been following this I've been doing this for like a decade. I mean, since a long time. So it works really well. Yeah, I don't like to combine fat and carbs though, like added fats and carbs.
Yeah. That's smart because they do bad things in your body, the glucose, the added sugars with the fats. Let me ask you this. I guess I should say that what Melanie's saying, folks, is very important because this is individualized to her. This is, she's been doing this for 10 years. So just make sure that you don't, as she pointed out, don't just blindly follow what she's doing because this works for her. For other folks, you want to play with what you're eating and make sure that it works for you. Have your blood test done, work with your physician and provider. For example, just a quick note, I recently started eating a lot of eggs, Melanie. And didn't notice anything. And then I had a world expert on lipids just on my podcast a few weeks ago. It's not published yet, but we were talking about a lot of these lipid markers and triglycerides and LDL cholesterol and especially ApoB, which they don't measure on these standard tests. And he's like, yeah, it should be this and this. And then I do my test right after and my ApoB is like high. And I go, hey, Tom, what's up? He's like, oh man, at this rate, I would put people on pharma. I'm like, okay, hold your horses, Tom. I'm going to fix this myself. And in 3 months, we'll talk again because I'm not getting on pharmaceuticals. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is I just blindly followed that eating 3 or 4 eggs with the yolks every day was okay for me, but I found out that it's not. And so I'm now changing my diet until I come back into balance, and then that will be my new diet. So this is what Melanie's saying as well. So listen to this. All right. Do you have cheat days? I know you mentioned that you eat high carb or high fat, so it's not a big deal. And this may not be a big question for you, but people are curious if, and I get this question too. Let's say you're fasting or eating super clean, but then you have a friend's birthday or you have, Thanksgiving dinner coming up. How do you prepare for that?
Yeah. So, I don't, okay. As far as, cause I eat gluten-free and I eat like a quote paleo diet. I don't ever cheat really from that. It's not worth it for me because of how I feel after. Like, it's just not worth it. So like, even if I taste like, cause like my kryptonite, the thing I love is funfetti cake. Like funfetti, I will just, it's like the most amazing thing. And, but if I eat it, I would just feel really, really terrible. So when it comes to holidays, those aren't really hard for me because I like genuinely like love what I'm eating. So I typically just eat what there is that fits within my world. And then usually what ends up happening is I have to, or if I go out to dinner, I go home and eat more because it's never like enough. I have recently begun experimenting with like making like versions of things. Cause I started realizing that I could like play around with whey and different powders and I could make like these like cake type substances that taste like, they taste like pretty much like cake. But that was kind of like, I kind of go through like flings where I'm like, oh, I'm going to like make the whey cake thing. Now I'm like over it and I'm just back to what I'm normally eating. So no, I don't really cheat.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So let's move on to the next question. I know that you're a big fan of a continuous glucose monitor and you track your glucose pretty religiously, if I may say so. Just in the time that we've been friends, I've noticed that about you. And I do that as well. And we're both actually wearing a continuous glucose monitor right now, which is crazy. And so I guess I want to hear your thoughts on glucose, high carbs, and what you like to see from your numbers and how low you like to keep your glucose.
Yeah. So I just put it on before this.
Show it off.
I know. We match.
There we go.
Match. Different companies, but we match. When I first started using the CGM, I was obsessed. And I think I put one on and like wear it and then put one on and wear it because they last for 2 weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was so eye-opening to see how I was responding to foods and just also really motivating to see how much, even when you're fasted, your blood sugar might fluctuate. So, if you go get a blood test at the doctor, it might show your blood glucose and you realize, oh, if I had gone like 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later, it might've been actually pretty different. So it takes away a little bit of the neuroticism surrounding that one measure that you get at the doctor. So, and this is something that's really, I think, important to point out. And you touched on it a little bit earlier about the individuality of people. People react really differently to different like carbs versus fats and how they process things. And I'm prepping right now to interview Tim Spector. He has some books, but he runs Zoe, the Zoe company right now. And they have been using CGMs and they test these like muffins where they test people's responses to carbs and fats. And I was reading his book today and he said that out of the like thousands of people they tested, only 1% of the people had normal average reactions to both carbs and fat and insulin. And so basically what that means is like barely anybody reacts quote normally to everything. So like when we learn like, this is how you should react to carbs or this is how you react, like, no, like we're all like really, really different. Yeah, it's crazy. So what I think is really important is, lower fasted blood sugar levels and not staying super elevated after meals for a long time. I'm on the fence about this. And I've asked the people at CGMs I've interviewed, like, what is worse, like a large spike that comes down quickly or less of a spike that takes longer to come down. And I think it gets really nuanced, but I think what's probably most important is the area under the curve. So like when you're looking at your graph of your blood sugar and where the spikes are, like all of the area under the curve is like all of the total blood sugar levels that you've had. And it might be possible that you'd have a lower area under the curve if you spike higher after a meal, but it quickly drops. So, because we basically want to be able to tolerate the foods that we're eating and relatively quickly bring down our blood sugar levels. So again, it's individual. But what's really great is the CGM companies that are making these CGMs accessible. They have apps, and those apps tend to show you like your average blood sugar and your area under the curve and where you're at. So I think people can really work with them to find what's working for them. But definitely don't be afraid to experiment with different macros, because I think especially in the low carb world, people will get stuck in ruts of low carb and have sort of higher fasting blood sugars. And then they might switch to like high carb, low fat and actually improve. And that can be very shocking, I think, to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all individual.
Yeah, for sure. People listening, and I've harped on this before, but definitely if you get a chance, get out or get a blood glucose monitor, install it. It's super easy to do. And then just track it for a couple of weeks. It's not that either of us want you to keep putting these on every, week after week, but it leads to you identifying what's actually going on in your body. And that can lead to long-term behavioral changes, which change, little habits that you change here and there can have a dramatic impact over 10 or 20 years in your life. And this is considering your health. That's your first priority, or for most people it is. It really goes a long way. So Melanie, I do a 16-8 most of the time. So I'll fast for 16 hours and I'll eat for 8. The only exception being black coffee, which I understand doesn't break your fast in the morning. And when I talked to your co-host on one of your podcasts, Jen Stevens, she said something that I still remember. And she said that the IF, intermittent fasting lifestyle, is for the long term. It's not something you do for a couple of months to lose weight and then you come back to the normal, ad libitum 6 times a day eating or whatever you did before. It's something you just continue on for the rest of your life because there's so many benefits. Is that your perspective as well?
100%. And the thing is, I think when people do it, I'm not making this up when I say, I think one of my worst fears, and it's not even a realistic fear because I don't know why this would happen, but one of my worst fears is somebody's going to make me stop fasting. Like it's going to be illegal or something. And that would just be so awful for me. So the point of that is that, people might begin it as a quote temporary thing, but it becomes such a wonderful, natural part of your lifestyle that it's very easy to maintain, and most people want to maintain. Mm-hmm. So,
and what Melanie said earlier, once you start fasting and your body starts to convert to burning fat, most of us will probably live our entire lives without burning fat because there's just too much carbohydrates out there. We're just eating too much glucose. But when your body starts to switch to burning fats more often, it's called you being metabolically flexible. And that means that you are going to be harder to kill over the long term because, you don't get food for 3 days. No problem. You got plenty of fat to last you for months and months. And so, again, this is something that in the health and wellness community is getting more attention, and I think rightfully so. So with that said, Melanie, I'd like to touch or switch to a slightly different but related topic. And I want to ask you about your biohacking habits and what you do on a day-to-day basis. There's, in the community, I asked some of these folks and they're like, well, we want to know what she does and what her entire day looks like. And of course, I know a lot of biohackers, but I consider you to be one of the more advanced ones. So tell us how you went from fasting and intermittent fasting into more of a biohacking lifestyle. And if you would, share your top 3 starter biohacks.
Sure. So I fell into the biohacking thing because, like I said, I had some health issues and I was just trying all of these different things to feel better. And that's when I started realizing that these quote biohacks really made me feel a lot better and like really enhanced my life. And so I just wanted to try all the things. And I wasn't at the beginning labeling it as biohacking, but now I'm like, oh, this is biohacking. Like all these things that I'm doing are what is considered to be biohacking. So I think approachable, like gateway biohacks, taking charge of your light exposure, I think is so huge. So probably one of the first biohacking things I ever did was I started wearing blue light blocking glasses. I mean, this was forever ago and now they're like pretty popular, but, yeah. So like as the night's coming, like at night, we shouldn't really be exposed to blue light. That's not natural. And it really messes with our circadian rhythm, affects our sleep. It affects anxiety levels, tension, stress, headaches. So wearing blue light blocking glasses, I wear them every single night of my life. And I have for years and years and years and years and years. I think that I love also in the light world, I love red light therapy. So I usually always have my Juve, my red light going. I find like people use it. You can use, there's red and near infrared. You can use it for like targeted muscle treatment and skin health and things like that. I really love it for, again, the circadian regulation. So just having it to combat the blue light and it stimulates the light. It's the same type of wavelength that would be in the rising and setting sun. So having it going really, again, helps with your circadian rhythm and sleep. Again, sleep is just so important. And then, well, speaking of sleep, I think anything you can quote hack to support your sleep is incredible. So I personally very simple approachable things are like blackout curtains and earplugs and a mask if you can wear it, and keeping the room cool. So turning down your air conditioner to keep it pretty cold. I keep my apartment at usually like 65 degrees during the day. And at night I keep it at 60. Wow. There's also benefits, to like being in a slightly cool environment. And then speaking of cool, I use the chili pad, or I don't think it's called that anymore, but like a mattress cooler to regulate my sleep temperature. I find that so helpful. So yeah, a lot of things.
Those are great, and most of them are super cheap, if not free. Like you mentioned, anybody can get them, and they're really good biohacks that anybody can start with. I know that you also, and a lot of us also do more advanced ones. And I wanted to touch on maybe like 2 or 3 that are super advanced that you're doing that maybe, people shouldn't start with because they're just expensive, but you love them regardless.
Yeah. Okay. There's so many. But my new obsession one right now, I'm like so obsessed, is called Somavedic. It's, I want to show it to you. I wonder if I can like pick it up. It's this glass housing thing. Yeah, you can see it. I don't know if you can see it. It has like precious and semi-precious stones on the inside, and it plugs in. And I was very suspicious of it because it seems very like woo-woo, but they sent it to me. And I have since bought another one myself, and I want to buy another one. But it basically, they have studies on it, and it creates a field that combats EMF. And in the studies, they've shown that it mitigates cellular damage. And since using it, my Oura Ring scores, which I would also consider Oura Ring also in this category of a little bit more expensive, but really amazing biohacking things. So my Oura Ring, do you have yours on? Your Oura Ring? Yes. Yeah.
It's right here.
Match. We got our CJM and our Oura Ring.
Oh yeah, we're totally matching.
I know we are. So I've seen crazy improvements in my heart rate variability and my readiness scores since using this. I mean, it's like blowing my mind. So I think I want to buy another one for my car. But I love the Oura Ring too, because it measures heart rate variability. It measures your respiration, your sleep, your body temperature, and your activity levels. And I've had the CEO on my show twice, and out of all of the wearables out there, like the precision and accuracy of this compared to the other ones, I feel like we're extremely confident in it. Mm-hmm. And I just find it so motivating to get a glimpse into how your body is responding to stress and things like that. And probably the third one, the one I love, like obsessed with, that I do every single day that I can, I did today, is cryotherapy. Do you do cryotherapy?
No, not at the moment. Everything's closed around here, or was, I guess.
Yeah. Grateful it's open here. But basically, you go stand in a chamber and it gets down to negative 220 degrees and you stand there for 3 minutes and oh my goodness, you walk out and you just feel so good. Mm-hmm. So I do that pretty much every day that I can.
Very cool. Those are some amazing biohacks. I love them all. And one that I've been doing that's been interesting recently, I was nerding out on heart rate variability a lot. And so I reached out to a few folks, did some podcasts, and I started using a chest strap, which it connects to your device, to your phone, and it tells you what you're doing. So you can do it for multiple minutes. And you can also do it after your meals, surprisingly, to see your sensitivities to food, which again, I don't know how accurate that is, but I found a sensitivity to eggs and I was like, cholesterol's high, so kind of makes sense. But I've been using that. So so I love these. I use the Oura Ring every day as well. It's super cool. The only days I don't look at my Oura Ring when I subjectively feel bad about my sleep, like I didn't sleep great. I'm like, I'm not going to look because if I look, then it's certified, then it's bad. So I'm just going to avoid it. But like 90% of the time I'm looking at my ring just to see how my body is doing, like you said, overnight.
Yeah, I was just going to say really quickly, I do always look at it, and I'm normally like, it's normally pretty good. But if I ever have a night where like a big drinking night or like going out night, I do like to look at it because I just find it so funny how it knows, and I'm like, can't escape it.
Yep. It knows.
So,
it knows you were naughty last night.
I know.
Okay. Awesome. I thought you were going to talk about bottled water, actually, that you were drinking last time we talked a few months ago. But that's a little bit out there.
I literally just emailed them today because, I was drinking deuterium depleted water. And I've now done 2 episodes on it, and I'm like really convinced. And so I emailed them today and I was like, I got to start ordering this again. Like, do you have because they'd offered that I could order it, like at a slightly better price, which I'm so grateful for. That's a whole rabbit hole. It's really expensive, but, Google deuterium depletion.
She's on the bandwagon, folks. All right, cool. Let's move on. I want to talk to you about skincare, Melanie, which I know that you're very passionate about. And, for me personally, it had not been a priority. I think like for most men, we just kind of take our skin for granted. And in my 20s, and I don't remember that I had any time of nighttime or morning routine. So just basically wash my face and fall asleep. But starting in my mid 30s, I've gotten a little bit more into my facial, regimen at night and in the morning, and it's still pretty light. But I am very curious what you do in the morning and at night. And you don't have to go into crazy detail, but I'm sure the listeners would like to know as well what Melanie's doing in the morning and at night to take care of her skin.
Yeah. So this kind of like you, this was not the thing that I first was focused on at all. Like it started with diet, exercise. Like I wasn't really thinking about skincare. I was, I honestly, I thought like just my diet will take care of it. And then I was like slowly cleaning up my skincare, but I've recently become, I think this is so important. And I think people just aren't talking about it. And that's like conventional skincare and makeup, how the role of endocrine disruptors and the toxins that are in them, because we focus so much on the role of toxins in our environment, and our food is usually the focus, but very few people are talking about the skincare makeup. And what's really, really shocking is that in Europe, they've cracked down on it a little bit more, and they've banned thousands of compounds that have been shown in studies to be endocrine disruptors. So they mess with your hormones, obesogens, which actually literally cause your body to store and gain weight, and even carcinogens linked to cancer. And the US has only banned around like 10, which is just really shocking. So basically, when you're putting on skincare and makeup, most people, you're directly giving access to your bloodstream these toxic compounds. And I interviewed Jason Fung for his book, The Cancer Code. And reading that book was the first time I actually finally understood, I think, like what causes cancer, like not what causes cancer, but why carcinogens cause cancer. Mm-hmm. And the reasoning after reading his book was basically that carcinogens, like low dose exposure to carcinogens, damages your cells enough. So it doesn't damage them enough that they like die or that they get really defunct and then the body kills them through apoptosis. But it also doesn't like not damage them enough so that they can repair themselves. So instead they just get like this gray zone where the body's not killing them, but they're defective. So the body kind of like rejects them. And so then they have to go rogue to take care of themselves and generate energy. And that's basically what cancer is. Like it takes on like a mind of its own to survive. So the low dose exposure to carcinogens every day is what is doing that. And those are in our environment, our food, our skincare and makeup. And I think the skincare makeup is like one of the most huge parts of it. So I have like become on the like clean skincare mission. Interestingly, as far as like the day and nighttime routine, even before I was obsessed with this, I had like stopped using most conventional products. So I was really just like washing my face with Castile soap morning and evening and not really using much beyond that. And I'm actually still very simple. Like I know there's a lot of routines. A lot of people do use like really extensive lines. And I think those are really helpful, but I'm still actually like at the bare minimum. So I pretty much just like wash my face and then I use like a vitamin C anti-aging serum. And I find that actually moisturizing enough for me right now. But I think as I age, I might need to integrate more like moisturizers and things like that. But I'm simple and more about just like cleaning up everything. Oh, and then the makeup, of course.
Right.
For women, be clean. And shampoo, conditioner, and deodorant, and everything.
That's right. It's beauty and bath products, both of them.
Yeah, anything that you put on you.
Yeah, there's so many of these phthalates and benzoates and parabens that are included in some of these formulations, beauty formulations by large companies. And I actually was talking to a formulator last year, and I asked them, I don't want any paraben, or I want to talk any parabens. And the guy looked at me and said, they're not that harmful. You know that, right? And I go, is that what the beauty industry thinks? Because
oh my gosh,
they want to get you a result right away. They want you to make your skin plump in a week. So they're like, so everybody says, wow, this is the best cream ever. But they don't want you to live to 150, 120, 110. They don't care if you're around for that long. I mean, yes, it would help their bottom line, I guess, but really they're thinking very short term. And they're like, but parabens are actually good emulsifiers or good disinfectants or something, he said. And I go, that's what you guys think. And he was a top rated formulator that I got referred to from multiple people, which may tell you more about how these people think. But anyway, I agree with you 100%. It's got to be clean. You've got to, I think there's a statistic out there that an average woman, by the time she leaves her house or would leave her house in the morning, had 12 chemicals that she'd interact with just from bath and beauty products. So it's very important. So I'm similar to you. I don't do too much, but I'm looking to do some more as well as the days goes on. What about masks or scrubs or dry brushing or any of that, Melanie? Are you doing that?
Yeah. So, and I wanted to like say one other little thing,
Sure.
What you were just speaking about. These compounds, they actually, because they are toxic, unlike what that guy told you, the body tends to store them in our fat cells. So they build up in us. And then when women have children, actually a huge part of those toxins go through the placenta into the newborn. So babies are literally born toxic, which is really upsetting. So it's not just even you, if you're a woman, it's like the future generations. But yeah, so I really love, like clean, safe. So the company I love is Beauty Counter, and they have the reason I love them is they were founded on a mission to remove endocrine disruptors from skincare makeup, because the founder, I think she one of her relatives or friends or something had a miscarriage, and she realized the connection between endocrine disruptors and makeup, or endocrine disruptors and skincare, makeup, and fertility. And she realized there was like no companies who were looking into this. Like there are companies that are like clean and like non-toxic, but they often still have compounds in them. They definitely don't test for heavy metals or things like that. There's just nothing, there wasn't a company founded on this mission. So and on top of that, the ingredients they use actually are both natural and synthetic, because their bottom line is safety. So they make products to actually work regardless of if it's natural or synthetic, and test it for safety. So like they have a resurfacing peel for like the anti-aging effects, and that's amazing. The charcoal mask, I absolutely love. But the vitamin C serum has been like a game changer. I feel like, so when I eat like a lot of pineapple, I feel like my skin just glows, and I feel like that's what it does for me. So, I love, yeah. And I've also started using a red light therapy wand thing. It's called Solar Wave. It has red light, vibration, microcurrents, and massage all in one. So you like do it. Yeah. So I combine that with the C serum, and it's been fun.
Okay. Fantastic. Folks, for you listening, Melanie and I have been talking about Beauty Counter for a few months. She's told me about how much she enjoys the brand. And, jogging my memory, a few years ago in a different life, I worked for a big consulting firm that was helping Beauty Counter scale their business in LA. Yeah. Yeah. It scaled their business in LA. So I wasn't on the account. I was with Warner Bros. But friends of mine worked at the account. And so that's what they talked about is clean beauty. This is the future. And so like tying all those things together, I'm like, So I'm going to start using Beauty Counter, thanks to Melanie, a large part. And we'll include a link in the show notes for this episode. So you can get a discount as well if you're interested in trying some clean beauty products. So thank you, Melanie, for that. Okay, let's go to some other questions. There's some rapid fire questions that I want to ask you that, again, these are coming from the community. So number one, which biohack have you tried that turned out to be a disappointment for you?
Yeah. So I think there hasn't been one like epic fail of anything, but I think it's more in general. I like supplements as like a category. I've tried a lot of supplements. Some are great. Some I use all the time. There have been a lot that like I don't want to take anymore. And I get supplement overwhelm. So I think the worst I ever reacted to a supplement was when I took iodine. And interestingly, I've had Dr. Alan Christensen on my show, and he actually thinks iodine is like a lot of people think that their hypothyroidism is from a lack of iodine. He actually thinks it's the cause of hypothyroidism, which is shocking. But when I tried iodine, like this was years ago, it terrified me. Like my eyes turned like bloodshot red, thought I was dying. So I have not used iodine since then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I thought, when I was doing some of the research, I thought this was going to be Somatostatin, the woo-woo thing.
Oh no, Somatostatin's my thing.
Okay. I read your blog post about it, and in the end, you validated them. I was like, okay, they're fine, I guess. All right. So let's go to the next thing. There's obviously lots of books out there that beginners can pick up. What are the top 2 or 3 books you would recommend for somebody that's just getting into health?
Oh yeah. There's so many books. Oh my goodness. It's so hard, but I think I would recommend, and I've had all these people on my show, which is like so surreal, but David Sinclair's Lifespan. I think that's probably my favorite.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. Rob Wolf's The Paleo Solution is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today. Almost like I read his book and I was like, and probably Wim Hof's The Wim Hof Method.
All fantastic choices. So there you have it, those 3 books. Melanie, what is your, people understand you're working on a Sarahpeptase supplement, and there's questions around when it's going to be live, and in the meantime, what can they take?
So Sarahpeptase, it's an enzyme created by the Japanese silkworm. When you take it in the fasted state, it basically goes into your bloodstream and breaks down old proteins, kind of like autophagy. That is the autophagy process that's created by fasting. It's a game changer for allergies, sinuses, arthritis, inflammation, basically anything that the problem is a protein buildup or an old tissue buildup or something like that being the root cause, it will address. So I'm finally making my own, which is really exciting. It's probably going to, I don't know. I'm hoping by the fall or winter, late fall, early winter. In the meantime, if you go to ifpodcast.com/Sarahpeptase, that's where I have all the different brands that I like, because there are a lot of brands. And I'll keep that updated. So when I do release mine, it'll probably include the information for mine. So,
okay. Fantastic. Who are your top 2 favorite actors or actresses?
My girl crushes are Blake Lively and Keira Knightley, and Johnny Depp is my favorite actor.
Okay, great. Last question. When are you going to host your talk show?
Oh gosh, I hope so soon. That is the goal. I've given the timeline I'm giving myself is 3 years. That's my goal time. So we'll see. I'm just putting it out to the universe.
There we go. That's it. Yeah. You got to manifest it.
I know.
Awesome. So Melanie, people can find you at melanieavalon.com, but there's also 2 podcasts that you run and some Facebook groups. So please share those links or just call them out so people listening can go follow you.
Yeah. So melanieavalon.com. It'll have, like you said, it'll have links to the Melanie Avalon Biohacking Podcast. You can go to ifpodcast.com for the IF podcast. The app that we talked about is at melanieavalon.com/foodsense-guide. I'm Melanie Avalon on all my handles. So Instagram and Twitter and all those things. And then I have 3 Facebook groups you can join. One is IF Biohackers. One is, I think, Clean Beauty and Safe Skincare. And one is I don't remember what it is. It's Lumen. It's CG. If you type in Melanie Avalon, it'll come up, but it's a group for CGMs, Lumen, blood glucose. It's all of the monitoring of blood sugar related things and fat burning. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can give you the links.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that. And one last thing I would say is that for folks listening, I just want you to take away that, the time that Melanie started doing what she was doing was we didn't have the health information available at her fingertips that we do now. And so she had to go through a lot of trial and error in the hard way. But if there's some inspiration you can take is that it's possible to reboot your health, stay skinny, lean for a long time and feel great. And it doesn't have to take too much of your time. So, learn from inspiration like what Melanie's providing here, and just know that you can take charge of your health and live a long and healthy life. So with that, I'll check out. Melanie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me. Those were amazing questions. You are awesome. And everything that you're doing is everything I want to do, sharing, spreading the mission. And you're amazing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Melanie.